Chapter 32, DC Blacks. Before DC prisoners arrived in the federal prison system in the early 1900s, racism was blatant, and most blacks were being blatantly treated as slaves. Europeans and Italians had full control of every aspect of prison life with assistance from racist guards, who also supplied them with weapons and drugs. From gambling to heroin to prostitution to food, they were supplied and controlled everything inside of the prisons. Blacks didn't have anything and were only allowed to eat in the colored section of the chow halls, and entered and exited through the back or side doors, while the others entered and exited through the front. But that changed quickly. The men from DC stood up to the racist system, and with their propensity for extreme violence and organization, things began to change. Although it took receiving and giving out plenty of ass whoopings, new convictions, years of isolations, and men losing their lives, the change came and a large level of respect was gained. This attitude attracted men from other states who stood with the men from DC to challenge the racist system. From Alcatraz in the 30s up to the 80s, waves of aggressive DC convicts were able to establish a level of respect and fear amongst their fellow racist prisoners and guards. DC convicts were so unruly and rebellious that the federal government had to get white convicts from state prisons just to try and balance the power. They were bringing them in from places like Oklahoma State prisons in Washington State, Indiana, and South Carolina. Overall, the feds considered DC prisoners the most dangerous and violent convicts in the system, the most ruthless, cold-blooded, and uncontrollable, with the ability to fashion a knife out of anything, and we used it the most efficiently. DC men were also mostly leaders unto themselves, and this is why gangs were never able to strive in DC, because DC men weren't into taking orders. In high security prisons, fistfights were considered child's play. We lived by the sword. But in medium and low security prisons, fighting was an everyday occurrence, with DC prisoners also handing out the majority of the beatings. Most of the murders in the higher and lower security federal prisons were also committed by DC convicts, so they classified us as a gang called DC Blacks. We didn't consider ourselves a gang, though we stuck together. We stuck together as a city, as opposed to being indoctrinated into a culture and belief with a set of rules and goals like most gangs have. Wherever we went, it was essential to be on homie time, meaning we were riding with our homies over everyone else. Even if we were good friends with someone from another state, if they got into a conflict with a homie, then we were rolling with the homie. No questions asked. Homie time. I spoke with my parents whenever I had a chance to use the phone. They told me that after I was sentenced, the prosecutor approached them in the courtroom hallway and recommended that they hire a good lawyer. So they hired a lawyer by the name of Kenneth Mundy, with the goal to have my plea bargain retracted because of ineffective counsel, or to get a time cut. He was a flamboyant lawyer that defended politicians and famously defended Mayor Marion Barry. The prosecutor also said he never saw a judge dismiss every recommendation from a prosecutor or a youth study, especially towards a juvenile. He said it was very unjust and unprecedented what the judge did. A prosecutor said this. The inept lawyer name was Leroy Nesbitt, and we later found out that his childhood friend from Charleston, South Carolina, and a colleague at Howard University Law School was supposedly killed by the Shower Posse. He was a crooked lawyer that was taking cash and cocaine as payment for representation. When he was caught with 2 kilos, he decided to set them up. He then paid the ultimate price. He was killed on a small yacht in international waters off the coast of Barbados. Blood was found in his cabin and no body was ever recovered. He was fed to the sharks. Nesbitt thought I was Shower affiliated and decided to throw me to the wolves. He was also dealing with the bitterness after representing a homie named Billy Austin Bryant. Billy was serving 54 years for a rash of bank robberies and had escaped from Lawton by crashing through a chain-link fence with a vehicle that he had been working on in a prison automobile shop. Once out of the prison, he allegedly robbed another bank and killed 2 FBI agents that entered into an apartment in Southeast DC searching for him. He was placed on the America's Most Wanted list, eventually captured, spared the death penalty, and sentenced to double life. Nesbitt representation of Bryant caused the law enforcement community to alienate him, and while in line for judgeship, he never got his appointment. He was stuck being a lawyer and hated every defendant that either hired him or he was assigned to work for pro bono. Deep inside, he hated me. With our ineffective counsel appeal, we wanted to get the 4 consecutive sentences to run concurrent. My heftiest sentence was 40 months to 10 years. If we could get the judge to run the sentences concurrently, then all the other sentences would run with the 40 months, and I could see the parole board within that time and possibly be released earlier. But as of now, I was eligible to see the parole board in 1994, which was 5 years away, and the only way to make parole is to stay out of trouble and complete a lot of educational programs. At my age and mentality, I would never make parole, and appealing to the same bigoted judge was almost futile. Within a few weeks at El Reno, I was taken to the hole for refusing to follow a direct order from a foolish pig.